Did you know that World War II did not begin with a single battle, a single speech, or a single act of war, but with years of fear, anger, and unfinished business left behind by the First World War? What if the deadliest conflict in human history was not inevitable, but carefully built, step by step, mistake by mistake? World War II would eventually involve more than 100 million soldiers, spread across continents, oceans, and skies. Entire cities would vanish, borders would be redrawn, empires would collapse, and by the end, the world would never be the same again. This is not just a story of battles and generals. It is the story of how the modern world was forged through fire, sacrifice, and total war. After World War I, the world was unstable and deeply divided. Europe was exhausted. Economies were shattered. Nations were angry and afraid. Germany, defeated and humiliated by harsh peace terms, struggled with economic collapse and national shame. Across Europe and Asia, new ideologies began to rise, promising strength, unity, and revenge. At the same time, the Great Depression spread misery worldwide. Pushing millions into poverty, governments fell. Extremism thrived. Instead of peace, the years between wars became a silent battlefield of propaganda, fear, and ambition. By the late 1930s, the world was standing on a fragile edge, one push away from total war. In 1939, that push finally came. Germany launched a sudden invasion of Poland, using fast-moving armies, tanks, and aircraft in a new form of warfare the world had never seen. Within days, Britain and France declared war. World War II had begun. On the map, Europe exploded into motion. Borders became front lines. Armies surged forward. Yet while the war was declared, it did not fully ignite at first. A tense pause followed, as nations prepared for something far bigger than they imagined. The storm was gathering, and when it broke, it would consume the entire world. In 1940, the war changed speed. German forces swept through Western Europe with terrifying efficiency. Country after country collapsed in weeks, not years. France, once thought unbeatable, fell shockingly fast. Soldiers retreated. Cities surrendered. Millions fled their homes. Across the map, German control expanded rapidly, creating the illusion of an unstoppable force. Only Britain remained defiant, standing alone against overwhelming odds. Above the English skies, air battles raged day and night, proving that this war would not be decided by land alone. As Europe burned, the war spread far beyond it. In Asia, conflict had already been raging for years. Now it escalated into full global war. A surprise attack on a major naval base in the Pacific pulled the United States directly into the conflict. Suddenly, the war spanned oceans. On the map, front lines stretched from North Africa to the Pacific Islands, from frozen forests to tropical jungles. This was no longer a regional war. It was a true world war. World War II was different from all wars before it. Entire nations were mobilized. Factories became weapons. Cities became targets. Civilians became part of the battlefield. Bombing campaigns flattened neighborhoods. Supply lines determined survival. Millions were forced from their homes. Millions more never returned. Behind the front lines, fear and loss became daily life. This war was not only fought by soldiers, it was endured by entire populations. If you're finding this map-based breakdown helpful, take a moment to like this video. It helps Battlemap reach more history lovers. And if you want more deep, visual stories like this, covering wars, empires, and turning points in history, subscribe to Battlemap and stay with us. Now let's continue, because the war was far from over. By the early 1940s, the war reached critical turning points. Massive battles changed the direction of the conflict, on land, at sea, and in the air. Armies that once advanced without resistance were stopped, surrounded, and pushed back. On the map, momentum slowly shifted. Territories changed hands. Supply routes broke. For the first time, the outcome of the war was no longer certain. The tide had begun to turn. As the war entered its final phase, pressure closed in from all sides. Cities were encircled. Fronts collapsed. Entire regions fell one after another. In Europe, the fighting reached the very heart of the conflict, leaving devastation behind. In the Pacific, brutal island-by-island battles continued, each one costly and unforgiving. The war dragged on, not because victory was unclear, but because the cost of ending it was unimaginable. In 1945, World War II finally came to an end, but it did not end quietly. The final months brought destruction on a scale the world had never seen before. When the fighting stopped, entire cities lay in ruins. Tens of millions were dead. Nations were exhausted. The war was over, but the world it left behind was permanently changed. After the war, borders were redrawn, empires dissolved, new powers rose. International institutions were created to prevent another catastrophe. The balance of power shifted dramatically, shaping global politics for decades to come. The scars of the war remained, visible in cities, families, and memories. World War II did not just end an era, it created the world we live in today. World War II matters because its lessons are still unfinished. It shows how fear can turn into hatred, how economic collapse can fuel extremism, how technology can magnify both progress and destruction. History does not repeat exactly, but it often follows familiar paths. Understanding this war is not about the past. It is about recognizing the warning signs of the future.